For a moment, imagine opening your phone or switching on the television and hearing words that immediately make your heart skip. Born before 1961. New December payment approved. For millions, that single sentence feels like a lifeline dropped from the sky. Relief, hope, curiosity, and for many, one urgent question. Is this really happening to me? When money is tight and winter is approaching, even the suggestion of extra support can feel like sunlight through heavy cloud. Those born before 1961 are now among the most financially vulnerable groups in the country. Fixed incomes, rising living costs, energy prices that never truly settle, food bills that seem to climb quietly week after week. In that reality, any talk of a new December payment carries emotional weight far beyond the number itself. For some, this news feels like recognition at last. Recognition of lifetime contribution, recognition of struggle, recognition of the simple truth that later life is not getting easier. But excitement often walks hand in hand with confusion. What exactly has been approved? Who qualifies? And what does this mean for everyday life? The phrase born before 1961 instantly narrows the focus to a generation that has seen enormous change. People who worked through eras of industrial decline, housing booms and busts, shifting social policies, and expanding retirement ages. Many planned their futures around promises that later evolved. Some adapted easily. Others were caught off guard by changes they never expected to face. This is why news tied to age feels personal. It draws a line through time and asks people to step forward based on when they were born. That can feel both validating and unsettling at the same time. For those hearing about a new December payment, the first instinct is to imagine how it might help. Heating switched on without counting every minute, food choices made more freely, bills paid without that familiar knot in the stomach, gifts bought for grandchildren without guilt, travel plans that were once postponed now brought gently back into view. But in the minds of many, excitement is quickly followed by caution. They have seen rumors before. They have seen figures spread rapidly online only to dissolve under closer inspection. And no one wants to build hope that later turns into disappointment. The truth about this newly approved December payment is more layered than a single headline suggests. It does not arrive as one identical amount for every person born before 1961. It is shaped by eligibility, existing benefits, income levels, and personal circumstances. That nuance is exactly where both relief and confusion live side by side. For some, this payment represents direct extra support that arrives at exactly the hardest point in the year. For others, it may appear as a top-up linked to their current arrangements. For some, it may be folded quietly into existing payments rather than arriving as a bold separate transaction. This complexity can make something positive feel strangely uncertain. What is clear is that December was chosen for a reason. Winter remains the most expensive season for older households. Energy usage climbs, days shorten, travel becomes harder, social isolation increases, and spending pressures intensify just as resilience feels weakest. A payment landing at this time is not just financial, it is emotional protection against the coldest stretch of the year. For those born before 1961, age brings both wisdom and vulnerability. Many carry health concerns that shape daily life. Prescriptions, appointments, mobility needs, diet restrictions. All of these quietly increase the cost of living beyond what figures on a bill can ever fully show. A new payment in December speaks directly to that reality. Yet the question of who actually receives what remains the source of the greatest anxiety. Some fear being left out despite qualifying by age. Others worry that receiving extra support might affect other payments they rely on. Some wonder whether savings will reduce eligibility. Others worry that accepting help today could create complications tomorrow. These are not greedy worries, they are survival worries. There is also the emotional complexity of pride. Many who qualify for extra support have spent a lifetime avoiding assistance. They worked through hardship. They balanced budgets through crises. They raised families with little margin for error. Accepting help, even when needed, can feel like a loss of independence rather than a victory. But the reality of later life economics has changed. Costs rose faster than safety nets. And somewhere along the way, the idea that needs diminish with age quietly disappeared. If anything, they grew more complex and less predictable. For families, this December payment carries its own weight. Adult children often worry silently about parents. They notice quieter meals, longer pauses before turning on the heating, hesitation before making plans. A payment approved for December can ease not only the pensioner's anxiety, but also the unspoken tension that family members carry when they fear what they cannot always see. At the same time, some families may rush to count money that has not yet landed. That can create uncomfortable conversations, unspoken expectations, subtle pressure, all of which can make a well-intentioned payment feel heavier than it should. This is why understanding matters just as much as receiving. Another layer sits beneath the surface of this announcement. The idea that people born before 1961 are being specifically acknowledged marks a shift in focus. It reflects the reality that this group now sits firmly within the highest risk bracket for financial vulnerability during winter. That recognition is important, but it also highlights how narrow the margin for security has become. For some, the approved payment will arrive smoothly and bring genuine relief. For others, it may be absorbed instantly into overdue bills and rising costs, disappearing before it ever feels real. Both experiences are true at the same time. What matters most is not the headline, but what it allows people to do. For one person, it might mean keeping the heating on overnight without fear. For another, it might mean replacing broken winter clothing. For someone else, it may simply clear an arrears notice that had been hanging over them in silence. The quiet victories are the ones that never make news. There is also the psychological impact of being included. When people feel forgotten by systems they supported all their lives, even a small gesture of targeted support can restore a sense of belonging. It says you still matter. Your age is not invisible. Your struggle is recognized. That feeling can be just as important as the monetary value itself. Yet caution remains wise. Every payment has rules, conditions, thresholds, timelines. And misunderstanding any of these can turn excitement into frustration if things do not arrive as expected. This is why many older recipients approach such news with guarded hope rather than celebration. They have learned that preparation protects the heart as much as the bank balance. As December approaches, anticipation will grow. Bank statements will be checked more often. Conversations at kitchen tables will quietly revolve around whether and when money might arrive. Some will plan carefully, others will wait and see. Some will avoid thinking about it entirely, protecting themselves from disappointment through emotional distance. All of those responses come from lived experience. The truth is that no single payment can fix decades of rising pressure. It cannot undo years of financial erosion. It cannot reverse health challenges, and it cannot fully restore the sense of security many once believed retirement would bring automatically. But it can offer breathing space. Breathing space changes everything. It allows a pause between worry and fear. It gives room for choice instead of constant reaction. It creates the possibility of enjoying a moment rather than merely surviving it. For those born before 1961, that breathing space arrives at a time when winter carries more weight than it once did, when cold feels deeper, when nights feel longer, when uncertainty feels louder. The new December payment speaks directly to that moment. Still, it is important to remember that not every eligible person will experience the same outcome. The system remains layered, circumstances will shape results. And comparison is rarely fair when lives unfold so differently behind closed doors. Some will receive more relief than others. Some may barely feel a difference at all, and that reality can create complicated emotions. Gratitude mixed with guilt, relief mixed with frustration, hope mixed with continued anxiety. None of those feelings are wrong. They simply reflect how deeply personal money becomes when it intersects with survival and dignity. For anyone hearing this news now, the most powerful response is not blind expectation. It is informed awareness. Knowing your circumstances. Understanding how support fits into your wider picture. Asking questions early, preparing calmly, and involving someone you trust if confusion starts to grow. Knowledge remains the strongest protection against stress, For families, patience matters. Excitement should not quietly turn into assumption, support should not become pressure, and presence should not depend on payment. The story here is not just about money arriving in December, it is about how deeply later life security now depends on details that many never expected to manage so closely. People born before 1961 grew up believing that retirement would be simple, work would end, a pension would arrive, life would slow down. Few imagined that later years would require this level of vigilance, planning, and financial navigation. Yet here we are. This new payment does not rewrite that reality, but it does intersect with it in a meaningful way. It lands as a reminder that while the system may feel complex and sometimes unforgiving, moments of recognition still matter. And in winter, recognition can feel like warmth. Outro. For those born before 1961, this approved December payment may arrive as support, as relief, or simply as a small buffer against a long cold season. But beyond the numbers, it carries something quieter and just as important. It carries the message that you are seen, that your stage of life still matters, and that even now, after all the years of work and change, help can still arrive when the nights grow longest. Whatever this payment means for your personal circumstances, let it remind you of one truth that should never fade. Your years of contribution still count, and your comfort still matters.